Well, hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Sam. I'm a pastor. I'm a student of the Bible. You can read my writings on sambert.org if you want to check those out. My training involves biblical studies, theology, biblical languages, things like that. So on my channel, I have quite a few Bible translation reviews. I never set out in this channel to do that. That wasn't like an on-purpose thing. It wasn't like I'm going to be a Bible review channel. It just kind of happened because I had a couple people ask me questions like, hey, is this translation good? What about this translation? And so I just kind of ran with that for a little while. But I've been asked this question several times that I wanted to address today. And the reason I say that my channel didn't start out that way is because my whole goal for this YouTube channel was to bring biblical scholarship, theology, and faith to the everyday person. What does it look like to study the Bible in an academic way? What does it look like to be a student of the Bible? What are some things that maybe the average everyday person doesn't have access to, or hasn't really thought through from that kind of a perspective? What do you not get in church that you probably should know about the Bible, that kind of stuff. But then theology, how has theology shifted and morphed and changed from first century all the way till today? What's the where are we at right now with some theological positions? How do they shift and morph and change based on what denomination you're a part of, all that kind of stuff. And then just faith. What does it look like to be a person of faith, even though you have an academic background and that kind of stuff? So that was my whole goal for this channel. So it wasn't really to do Bible reviews, but I've done several of them. And one of the questions I've got that, like I said, I want to address in this video is this question of what's my favorite version of the Bible. Now, I do have a favorite version, but I think that's a weird question for me because the way I would answer this question is what are my go-tos? Like what are the versions of the Bible that I would go, yes, I'm going to look at those first. I'm going to go to those first. I trust these, that kind of a thing, or I have a reason for really like diving into these. So I actually have three go-tos versions that I use quite often. And that I would say I trust the most, and I have reasons for all three of these, that I trust them the most. I'm not saying that they're the best, but I'm saying for me, these are the ones that I would say, yeah, I bank on these. Now, if you've been following me on my channel for any length of time, I'm not a really big fan of the ESV. And I will say this, the ESV, from a translation standpoint, it's a pretty decent translation of the text, a very formal equivalent translation of the text. It hangs on to the Hebrew and the Greek pretty word for word. It's done its homework. The people who translated did their homework on variants. They did their homework on Dead Sea Scrolls and all that kind of stuff. My issue with the ESV has not much to do with the translation of it. It has more to do with the story behind it and why it was translated. And so for me, it's just not something I love to attach to. I will go to it and look at it from time to time. And so I'll give it its kudos where it's warranted. There are several places in it, though, that I completely disagree with how they translated a Hebrew word, a Hebrew phrase, where you can see kind of a theological bend in how they translated versus just translating it the way it should be. But those aren't major. Those aren't like all over the place. So they're in few spots, but they can lend towards a very different than I see perspective theologically. And so that's why I just don't really run to the ESV often. It's also another reason why I don't run to the Legacy Standard Bible. I haven't done a review on the Legacy Standard Bible here, but when I talk about one of the versions that I actually like, that is one of my go-tos, I'll talk a little bit about the Legacy Standard Bible and why I think it was a little bit of an unnecessary translation. Why I think they did it and why it's ridiculous that they did it. And it kind of falls in line with a little bit of the ESV and why they did the ESV. So anyway, so what are my top three? Well, in this order, I'm going to go from my last one's my favorite, the one I use all the time, the one I would probably say is my one. And then it'll go like in a order from like third, second, first, that kind of a deal. Okay, so in number 3, in the third position, is the 2011 NIV. I have several of these 2011 NIVs. This is my desk Bible. I think this one's super cool. Look at this. It's like a square. And so I keep this one on my desk. This is one of those True Tone leather soft Bibles. But it's the reason I fell in love with it when I found it was because it's a square, and like it's really wide, like a desk Bible, and the print is gigantic. I'm super farsighted, so giant print is a great thing for me. And so this just lays flat on my desk, and I actually just love using it. Now, I use the NIV 2011. I've talked about this before on my channel because I'm a pastor in a church, and that's the Bible that our congregation is most familiar with. It's the one we use the most. And so it's what I go to because it's like a default thing as a pastor. It's what I use for shepherding people. It's what I use for preaching out of, all that kind of stuff. And for the most part, the 2011 NIV did a really good job. I'm finding, as I do more and more translating work in Greek, especially, that the 2011 stays pretty true formally to the Greek. Now, when you're translating from the Greek, especially, Hebrew is a little different. Hebrew, you got to make a lot of choices all over the place. But from the Greek, it's pretty. You can pretty much go word for word. But you have to make choices. Every translator has to make choices on how they want to translate certain phrases, certain words. And what I'm finding is that the 2011 NIV, the choices that they make when they have to go in a more dynamic, more functional way, line up a little more with the choices that I would make as I translate. So, and sometimes they don't. And you kind of have to go scratch your head and go, I wonder why they decided that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a decent translation. It's a Christian, how do I say this in the right way? It feels very Protestant. It feels very evangelical. They've made decisions in there that see things in a very evangelical way. For example, they add in some things in Genesis. They add in the pluperfect in Genesis chapter 2 that like the Lord God had made instead of the Lord God made, and to connect it back into Genesis 1 to make it more of an evangelical reading. And there's kind of that stuff flavored throughout, and you realize that when you look through who translated it and the team that they put together for it, and it's been that way ever since the 70s when they did the initial NIV translation. It was like this is made for evangelicals, and so or Protestants, at least at the very base level. So that's, you just have to know that about the NIV, that they kind of wiggle that into their translations because they're reading it with a lens. I think when you don't have an ecumenical group of people looking at it and translating it together and kind of, arguing over these texts to go, well, that's your bias, this is your bias, and they can kind of do away with biases, then what you get is a slanted translation. I think that's what the NIV translation is. It's kind of a more slanted towards evangelical Christians, that kind of stuff. So anyway, but that's what we use in our congregation. So that's what one of the main ones that I run to and I use often because of that, because it's my pastoral work. My number 2, and this has been a recent shift. I talked about this in a video like a long time ago, was I really love the NASB 95. I've loved that for a long time. And the reason, I have a specific reason why I love the NASB 95. When I was doing my undergrad and my very first 2 semesters of doing Greek, I was struggling pretty, and in my first semester especially, after you get done learning the alphabet, learning some key vocab words and learning about nouns and that kind of stuff, I was struggling with some of my translating work, and I was like, I don't understand how this, whatever. And so I started using the NASB 95 because that's the Bible that we used at our undergrad college. And it became very helpful for me in understanding Greek. because it's a very wooden word for word translation from the Greek, sometimes too much so. But I ended up loving the NASB 95 because of that. But I have always been a little bit like on how wooden and how literal it was gender wise and all this kind of stuff. And then they came out with, in 2020, the NASB 2020 text. And I kind of rolled my eyes because I've loved the NASB 95, and there was a lot of vitriol over this translation. People calling it like a woke translation or whatever, which whatever. So I dove into it. I bought this, I want to say like 3-4 months ago. And I dove into it, and I've actually really enjoyed and loved the NASB 2020. I use it. I don't agree with every choice they made on this, but I have really come to appreciate this, especially as I'm back in doing Greek at the seminary level again, and translating every week and trying to do all that stuff. And then I'm reading through passages, and I'm like, oh, this is really helpful again. So I've kind of fallen back in love with the NASB, and the 2020 helps make decisions better, like the ones that I think I would make as I'm translating. And so when the NIV, I'm looking at it and go, that doesn't make sense. I go to the NASB 2020 and go, okay, that's more helpful. The Legacy Standard Bible was the update that John MacArthur and a group of seminary professors at Master's Seminary, or people who've graduated from there with their PhDs or MD or DMins or whatever, their THDs or whatever degrees they have. That's a group translation that they did. And the reason I said I'm not a big fan of it, it has nothing to do with the translation. I don't love the fact that they spelled out Yahweh in the Old Testament. That's just a personal thing. But that's just neither here nor there. I think some people love it. Some people don't love that. My issue with the Legacy Standard Bible has more to do with the fact that it's an unnecessary translation. Like, we didn't need it. And it feels like it was a reaction to the NASB 2020. When the NASB 2020 came out, it is less, it's more gender inclusive of a translation. And I don't think MacArthur and his team or whatever loved that. They loved the NASB 95, and they use it all the time. And I think that they were hoping that the 2020 was going to come out and be just like the 95, and it wasn't. It was more gender inclusive, and I think they really bucked against that, and they didn't like it. And so they basically translated their Legacy Standard Bible to be an update to the 95 of the NASB. In fact, it's like a minimal update of the NASB 95. So for me, I'm like, why do I need a Legacy Standard Bible? I'll just go back to my NASB 25 and read that. It's basically the same thing. So that's why I'm like, okay, I don't have anything against those guys or whatever in how they translated. I just think it's an unnecessary translation, because for the NASB 2020, the biggest difference between the Legacy Standard Bible and this is that it just goes back to the 95, basically. And the gender inclusivity of, a lot of like reading brothers and sisters and that kind of stuff in the NASB 2020 is not in the LSB. So I just think it's unnecessary, but that's my take on that. So that's my number 2 that I run to. And I use this often. I've used it in videos here. And then my number 1, my very favorite translation of all, is the NRSV. Now, I use the UE, the NRSV UE, every once in a while, but that I'm coming to find that there's some choices that they made that I'm not really a big fan of. Sometimes I find like updates to be unnecessary, and I think some of the updates were completely unnecessary. And I'm going, okay, that's, sometimes culture wins out, kind of a deal. But anyway, the NRSV, I think this is the 1991. I use the NRSV for all my academic work. It is the academic standard in biblical studies. It's what we use across the board as we are interpreting, as we are writing papers. And so I've loved this since like my very first undergrad class. at my first university when they introduced me to the NRSV, because before that it was all KJV for me. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. And I love the way that they've done this. I love the way they've done that. I didn't even have any undergrad Greek classes yet, but I was like, this is way better for me. And then to realize how they translated and how good it is and what the updates were and all that kind of stuff. So this is my favorite #1 Bible that I run back to, that I use for my academic papers, that I use for all kinds of stuff. And I love this version of it. I got this. This is I think it's a goat skin leather, kind of a premium version of this. And what I love about it is it's a single column. I don't have a lot of single column Bibles, and I am loving the single column on it. Yeah, and then I love the gild on this. It's gold, but it has like a purple to it. It's kind of a cool thing. And then, of course, the ribbons. That's more of like a Bible review thing, but the ribbons are purple, silver, and gold, which kind of funny thing. The seminary I'm at right now is Ashland Theological Seminary, and our colors are purple and gold. So I'm like, oh, look at that. Anyway, but NRSV, I love this translation. I use it all the time. It is my go-to translation. It's what I will study a passage out of, and then I'll take whatever I learned and studied through that passage, take it back over to the NIV, and then I'll correct even the NIV with some of the NRSV as I teach. So it's just, and then I'll go, Greek, and then try to figure out, what are the choices that are different here versus here, and how would I have done this? And anyway, so those are my top three: the NRSV #1, the NASB 2020 #2, and the NIV 2011 #3. And like I said, I have various reasons for those. It doesn't mean that anything else, like the NLT, whatever, like it doesn't mean that those are lesser versions, that they're, not worth my time, whatever, because I consult those and use those too. These are just my go-tos. These are my favorites. All right. Well, hope you're having a great day. Like the video, subscribe, write some comments, and I'll see you in the next one.